World Bank says that the subsidies to the agriculture sector basically promote inefficiencies, and that means low production, low yield. And you are saying that these subsidies should be withdrawn. Now, there is a position in the WTO where the developing countries are on one side. They say, no, we need these subsidies for our population, and the developed world is on the other side. How to strike a balance where these agriculture subsidies somehow matter to the people, although they are not direct subsidies but indirect subsidies. Do you think country like Pakistan, where people don't have much resources, where they may not be able to afford an electricity price for their agriculture fuels, which are a normal rate, so don't you think at some point in time some subsidies are still needed?
So look, of course the poor need support. There's no doubt about that. Our argument as the World Bank is that the poor can best be supported through social protection schemes like the Benazir Income Support Program that actively puts money in poor people's pockets. What we have at the moment is very large levels of government spending that are only available to specific production techniques, and those production techniques may not be efficient, they may not be competitive, they may be very environmentally harmful, and the benefits of those subsidies are not necessarily accruing to the poor. They're accruing to the landowners, they're accruing to the larger farmers just as much. And so the fundamental challenge is to, of course, support the poor, but make sure that the spending that is being used to support the poor targets the poor, it reaches the poor, and it doesn't push the economy into production that is very inefficient, that is very environmentally and socially damaging.
You have listed a number of problems and reasons why that Pakistan's economy is going down, and one of the reasons the World Bank has listed is the weak institutions in Pakistan. And interestingly, the World Bank has proposed that Pakistan should set up National Council of Ministers. Why is it so? Do you think that we have experimented a lot? There are even the current caretaker government, they have formed a special committee to revive the country's economy. Do you think that this idea of setting up a council of National Council of Ministers will help address Pakistan's economic woes?
Look, I mean, I think the key fundamental issue we're getting at is that there are problems with federal-provincial coordination. And I think everybody recognizes that. We have a system in which the provinces get 90% of their revenues from the federal government, so that really weakens their incentives to raise revenues. We have a system where the federal government continues to deliver many of the services that should be now provincial mandates under the 18th Constitutional Amendment, and they're spending enormous amounts of money delivering what should be provincial responsibilities. And what we see is that there's a lack of coordination between the provincial governments and the federal governments, both when it comes to service delivery and when it comes to the development and implementation of policy. So you have the right arm doing something completely different to the left arm, and it's very unclear who is accountable for what and who is responsible for what. Now, is the solution another council of ministers? Maybe, maybe not. I think this was a suggestion we wanted to put on the table because we think something needs to be done to improve coordination. If that can be done with existing institutional arrangements, if that can be done through, for example, the Council of Common Interest or the National Economic Council, then all the better. Let's avoid new bureaucracy.
Tobias, on the World Bank's advice, Pakistan had set up the National Tax Council. And the purpose was the integration of all the taxes, at least integration of their policies, and having at least one return, sales tax return. Do you think that setting up the NTC, National Tax Council, helped in this manner? Because that could be used as an example, good or bad, for setting up the Council of Ministers.
Yeah, look, so we have continued to work with the NTC, and I think one of the real examples where we've seen progress has been on the GST Harmonization. We've still got a way to go, but what you've seen now is the provinces and the federal government agreeing on some of the definitions of what's a service and what's a tax, and at which point in the supply chain it should be taxed. That sounds all very technical, but what it means in practice is that we can now move towards a computerized system where taxpayers can submit one return and they can comply with the tax arrangement without spending hours and hours or submitting multiple returns. That's a really good thing because it reduces the compliance costs for taxpayers, and it means it's easier for taxpayers to meet their obligations.
Okay, we have to